Our world continues to change and push us in ways we have not been challenged before. On this show, we talk about these challenges, how to be aware of them, face them, and overcome them in your life. This is David Waldas, creator of the Aligned Living System.
And I'm Nick Musica, Aligned Living Coach. Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast.
Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast. This is David Waldas here with Nick Musica. Today I'm actually outside my backyard in Southern California here, enjoying this beautiful weather. And today's topic is actually that headline from the new copy as I'm getting my webpage rebranded and actually myself rebranded and Aligned Living rebranded and my webpage rebuilt. We thought it'd be really interesting to talk about the headline that's at the top, going to be at the top of my new page. It really hit both Nick and I in a very clear, direct way and very relatable to our lives and to the clients we work with. And so here's the headline. What if the life you built is the very thing holding you back? And I think that can hit us pretty hard, right? And, as I read that, when Nellie, who's doing the copy for me, the incredible copywriter, sent that to me, I was like, man, that's bold, right? That whole idea of that's self-confronting, where we go, when I look at my life, like what's keeping me from creating the life I want? It doesn't mean everything, but we got to look at it and go, man, this stuff I built in my life, the way I've created my life, that isn't going to take me where it is that I want to go. And there's a bunch of stuff I need to either shed, reprioritize, reset. And it sparked some really great conversation as, I shared the copy with Nick and we were sitting around dinner talking about it, of what does that look like in life and really comparing it to the business world. And Nick, you had a great example. Anyways, welcome. You can say hi if you'd like first before I start asking you questions. But
Oh, hey, David. Good to see you again.
Hey, what's up? But yeah, you had a great example about CEOs, right? And do you remember that example? Or you want me to quote you back to you first?
Yeah, I would love to hear it. Yeah.
Well, I think that was you, or did I say it? I think you said it.
We're going to find out.
Around the idea that when we look at CEOs in a business, quite often CEOs get fired, they get turned over.
That's right.
Because that CEO was a perfect person to take the business from this stage to this stage. And then once they got there, maybe they didn't have the vision or that vision was already completed what they were here to bring. And then they get fired. Somebody new comes in to take the company to the next level. And so do you want to add anything to that, or did I just steal all your...
No, that was it. The only thing I would add is, I think I was the one who said that. The only thing I would add would be, Steve Jobs is an example of this, right? He came in on day one and he did a bang up job, and then he got a board and they basically said, you're not the guy for the job, and they fired him. And then the company struggled, and then he came back. But, there was something that happened there. There was a reason why he was let go from their perspective. And maybe that's not the best example, but because he came back and all the things he's done with Apple. But there are some folks who choose very specific roles for this stage of this company, for this stage of this company, for this stage of this company, right?
Yeah.
And so you're talking about stage of the thing, us being the CEOs of ourselves.
Yeah, of our lives.
Yeah.
And sometimes we find ourselves having to engage in a different way. It's funny, I was actually just getting this kind of download of, remember when Giuliani, when he was the governor of New York, I guess in the 90s, right? He came in and New York's crime was ridiculous. I remember going there during that time. It was like, it just felt sketchy all over the city. And he came in and did some policies that were very unpopular with a lot of people, of that stop and frisk, where the police would basically walk on the street and anybody that looked or felt suspicious to them, they would stop and frisk them. And everybody was so upset about it. And there was a massive transformation in the city. You go to the city, it's still transformed. And this was prior to 9/11, but the city had actually transformed so much before 9/11. And then, 9/11 created another transformation too, but it was really unpopular. and he did a job there during that time, and then Bloomberg, whoever the next mayor was, came in and was able to manage it in a very different way because that other stuff was already taken care of. There was already a
Yeah.
cleanup that had happened. But Giuliani was probably the perfect person, whether you agree with his policies or not, to do the cleanup. But he wasn't the perfect person to run a cleaned up city because his skill set wasn't that. And Bloomberg probably, I don't know if Bloomberg was the next mayor or not, but he wouldn't have been the guy to clean it up because that's just not how he thinks. That's not, he wouldn't have been that bold or being willing to really violate
Yeah.
people's rights to that level.
Yeah.
But when we look at our own lives and how we're managing and what we're creating, there's times when we have to clean it up. We have to have some massive overhauls, and there's
Yeah.
times when there's something different called for. And
Yeah.
it seems like everybody I talk to, every client, is going through some sort of massive shift right now, and it matches the energy that's going on the planet. And what worked yesterday, what got us from here to there or through those times, doesn't work now. And we're being asked to get so clear and so clean on who we are and who we're not, and be who we are. And the same bullshit doesn't work anymore. We can't get away with it.
Yeah. Yeah. You just reminded me of something. I don't know if you use this line with the Harrison, which is a behavioral assessment, right? It gives you a snapshot of your operating system and shows you where you're under stress. So it shows the things you're willing to step into, and maybe more importantly, the things you're not willing to step into, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
People
typically people typically say yes to that type of thing because of feeling of stuck, of feeling not moving to where they want to be, or something that's not satisfactory. And that
Mm-hmm.
phrase of, well, this operating system that we see here was
Mm-hmm.
super helpful to get you to where you are, but this is not the operating system you need to get you where you want
No.
to go. So let's take a look
Yeah.
at it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's how we move from one phase to another. And um, I can look back on the different stages of my life and see how the way that I was engaging, what was important to me, what was distracting me, created the life at that phase. And it always matches. And then we go, you know what? There's something else being called up for me, and I need to go do this now. I need to execute
Yeah.
it in this way. And we see turnover in our businesses, we see turnover in
Yeah.
relationships, and some stuff sees it through. And this is like when we look at that line about what if the life you built is the very thing holding you back. It doesn't mean we need to clean slate it, but it does mean there's things in there that you've been doing that created what you wanted, and now there's something else that is in alignment for you, and something else needs to happen. And that means a lot of times overhauling stuff, but not
Yeah.
complete clearing of the
Yeah.
plate.
For most folks, it's not nuking it or throwing the baby with the bathwater out, right? For most people, it's not. For some people, they may feel like none of this is working.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, there's there's a sliding scale, I guess. But for most folks, it's sort of like ripping out the things that just do not serve them anymore,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
being clean about it, and then evolving from there, adding things to it, but ripping out the stuff that just don't need to be there anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like when I look at my career, I was teaching, and as these gifts started to open up for me, I was like, oh, I would love to start doing this professionally. How do I get out there? And so I started going to metaphysical fairs and doing sessions there, and that was awesome. Like it wasn't a lot of money in it, but I was getting to do it. I was, creating a client base. I was starting to get my name out there and really enjoying it and developing my skill set. And
Mm.
then, from there, I had opportunity to start working in some shops too, and so I started doing that on weekends, and became kind of a regular reader at places. And then from there, I left. I actually went half-time teaching and opened up my own center and started doing that. And then within a year, I was doing that full time, and that was great. I was doing more psychic type work, more readings, more healing work, and then at a certain point, it started moving into coaching, and so each one of these had an evolution and different
Mm-hmm.
clients. And so some of those clients have seen,
Mm-hmm.
I still have some clients from the original, but a lot of it's rolled over. Who am I supposed to be working with? What is it that's the right match for me in expressing this? And what is it? What kind of support do I need as far as am I doing the solo? Do I have team members? And that's fluctuated quite a bit How much do I want to take on holding space for other people? Where when I had a bigger center and had other practitioners there, or yoga in the place, or events, classes, and then it's funny. It went through all those phases, and it's come back to me now.
Mm.
With some certain helpers, but each one of those was like expansion, clean it up, expansion, cleaning it up, and you know who I'm working with and what's called for me and what kind of support I've needed and what the setting is has changed. Each one of those phases, and it's suited perfectly for where I was at in my own development and what I was offering. And each one of those looks very different than the one before. In a lot of ways the same role, but in a lot of ways a very different role. And it's kind of fun looking back on it and how differently I had to think to do the next thing, how differently I had to
Yeah.
engage in order to do the next thing, and what the
Yeah.
support I needed around me in order to do it.
Yeah. And so getting, I mean, you described, I think what a lot of us go through is this sort of, this morphing of career, this generalization, and then narrowing down to a specialty of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the second week having a very similar conversation with multiple people around, if you, whatever you're doing today, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
this is helpful for someone who's a generalist out there, but when you start to get more specific, when you get your audience narrowed in on a
Mm-hmm.
very specific audience, you can charge a lot more,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And
yeah.
so that's a maturation of uh, uh, stepping out of the things that you built. You may be a
Mm-hmm.
volume play. I'll take everyone for $1,000, and that's how I make a living. Versus I'll take
Yep.
half as many for five
Mm-hmm.
thousand dollars, right? And then that can turn into 10 or 20 or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
because of the decisions you make. That this got you here, then this got you there, and then this got you here. But at
Mm-hmm.
some point, what you're doing, for one reason or another, just doesn't work anymore, and you can stay
Yeah,
stagnant in
yeah.
it. You can, and I've gone through the process as well, and
Mm-hmm.
and then you got to make a choice to not do those things anymore and being open to the other things, and not go
Yeah,
back,
yeah,
not go
yeah.
back.
Absolutely. And everything we're talking about is kind of how we're acting out in the world, but then there's also
Yeah.
this internal piece of how we see ourselves, and that's a huge aspect of it too. It's like my one-to-one clients now are mostly like high performers, well-known people, people that are having a big impact, and who I need to be in order to coach them is very different than who I need to be to do readings on a weekend at a psychic fair, which that had
Yeah.
its own great value, but that's not what I'm doing now. And so I have to have a different level of confidence, a different level of certainty, a different level of really holding us an authority and being comfortable going into anywhere where there might be pushback, going into anywhere where we're dealing with very strong personalities that require a strong personality and strong identity to engage with in order to take them on that journey. And what's funny is that when I was at the level kind of just below people that were really doing big things, there was a lot of pushback. And what I found is that the people I'm working with now, they're at the highest level, there's no pushback. There's
Yeah.
curiosity, there's openness, and so I could see like, oh, I could actually mirror in myself of how do I take myself to the next level? How do I go from being like pretty high level to the highest level? Openness, like being coachable, being certain and open at the same time, um, having that kind of clarity and that kind of confidence. And it's interesting as I've coached, like I've realized I need to develop those same traits in myself, and that's really what I think
Yeah.
allowed me to move to the next level of clients, because
For
you see
sure.
what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, you reminded me of there's a saying that goes around every once in a while for freelancers, and it's like, the $500 client compared to the $50,000 client. The $500 client will say, "This isn't right. I thought it was going to be yesterday." And just, all these things,
Yep.
and they don't sign the contracts on time. Like, there's just so many problems. And then the $50,000 client is like, "Contract signs. Tell me where I can send a check." Like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
just done and
Exactly.
done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The payments instant. Yeah. Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
so interesting, right?
Yeah. I mean, part when you were talking about your client base and how it went from here to here in terms of well known and,
Mm.
um, different monetary value. Um, I remember going with you to Brendan Burchard. This was a long time ago. At
That
this
was a long
point,
time ago. Yeah.
a long time ago, and he did this exercise like write down your relationship with money. And
Mm-hmm.
I was having a hard time with it. Like I'm sitting there just
Mm-hmm.
like staring at the blank piece of paper with a pen in my hand, and I was getting frustrated, and I found myself thinking this out of frustration. I was like, I don't have a relationship with money. We never had a lot, so I never expected a lot. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, that's my relationship with money.
Oh, and there it is. It's
Oh
not that I don't have
no,
one. It's that I don't want to acknowledge the one I have.
that's
What
the
money?
one.
You have to have money to have a relationship with it. Oh shit.
Oh,
That would mean that would be
right.
my relationship.
Yeah. And then big arrows pointing to this is not good.
Yeah. Yeah. A-
Change this
absolutely.
now. Mm-hmm.
And you know what I think is so interesting about this work too, right? Is that what we're really talking about is expanding who we are, you know, and it sounds kind of ironic because we're saying we need to stop being these things and doing these things that we're not, and at the same time we're expanding the capacity inside of ourselves of claiming who we are and having all the space inside of us to navigate from with that certainty of who we are,
Yeah.
and then have the openness also of who we are. And so, you know, this was actually that same night that we were in La Jolla talking about, you know, this very thing. I had a really interesting experience earlier that night, because this is what this looks like, right? When we commit to growing and showing up at the next level, and we put clients in front of us or challenges in front of us, it forces us to grow. We don't get to show up as the same person. And so what does that mean? Well, we expand. And now that we're expanding, what gets revealed to us? Anything we're uncertain about, anything we're not clear about, any old trauma, any old coping mechanism, and it just
Yeah.
comes right back in our face for us to deal with, for us to clear, for us to find resolve or resolution on. And then we usually get another level of it, you know, as we grow again. I would say it's like an archaeological dig. We dig another 6 inches down and it reveals more. But what is the difference? Again, it's kind of like the difference between like the highest level client, you know, or like the you know, the $500 client and the $500,000 client. Like the all the problems happen at the beginning, and then when we discover these things about us, we don't go, "Oh my God, I can't believe I found something else wrong. I thought I resolved that. How could this be?" We just go, "Oh, okay, another thing showing up," and and when that thing shows up, we go, all right, I'm going to go take care of it. And inside of us, and this was my experience that, then I guess, what was that, Friday, right? We were, or Thursday, we were hanging out Thursday
Mm-hmm.
night.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I felt this feeling of like something really intense show up inside me, but I still had all this other bandwidth. I had all this other space inside of me. And it was interesting. It was about death, very interestingly. And, you know, you and I were talking about it, and I'd done a little clearing on your back for a second. As soon as I did, like it hit me, and I felt this intensity come in about something that was unresolved for me about death.
Oh, right.
And you know, this is what happens when we're doing this work. And I was like, oh man, I think you know, I've got to do some work around this. And I started feeling nauseous instantly. And I was like, wow, what is this? And at the same time, you know, when I first started doing this work, I would have been overwhelmed by that. I would have been inside the nausea. I would have been inside the experience. It would have been bigger than me. I'd have been like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, why am I feeling all this stuff? I feel dizzy. But instead, the experience was inside me. I was bigger than the experience. And so I was like, oh, I'm feeling nauseous. There's a slight dizziness, but I'm also have the ability to see myself having this experience and the room inside me to process it. You know, it's like all my RAM wasn't taken up by my rapid access memory, you know, like a computer wasn't taken up by the experience. I had the extra RAM in order to look at it, and my systems weren't clogged down. And so I'm like, you know, one of the ways I clear sometimes is I'll just dry heave. And, you know, so we're walking around La Jolla, which is by the sea line and stuff. It's probably not the best place for me. And so I was like, I told you guys, I'm like, I'm going to run back up to the Airbnb real quick, um, and dry heave, and clear this out, right? Clear this trauma that's showing up for me. And I'm like, I'll be right back, you know, still having a regular conversation, but like, there's something timely here. Let me go get this out of my system. So I went
Yeah.
up to the Airbnb, you know, and as I did, I saw something with my mother, and then I saw this experience of this little boy who was a, you know, good friend of the family. I'd see him a few times a year, and he died when he was 6. He fell out of a tree and had internal injuries, and they thought he just had a broken arm. They missed it. That night he died in his sleep, and it terrorized me as a kid. I was a couple years older than him, but it really created a lot of fear for me. And then I had this memory that came back instantly too, as I was as soon as I like dry heaved it out of like being maybe 10 and like lay on the couch and having all this pain in my stomach and thinking, oh, I must have internal injuries too. I think I'm gonna like, I wonder if this is gonna kill me. And so I started crying, and my parents were like, this kid's crying. Like, I'd come home bloody from a crashing my bike, and like, can you help me clean up? Like, there would be, they're like seeing me cry, what they thought was from pain, but it was from being scared. And so they took me to the emergency room and ran all these tests. And as soon as I found out I was fine, like the pain stopped and I was okay. I'm like, oh, good, I'm not going to die. That's great. Um, but it also timed with some other reflecting around death, and a former client and guy that I really really liked passed away last week too, unexpectedly, very young, and so it was all kind of all on my plate, and so to have all that processing at once, dry heaved, and I'm like, oh god, I feel so clear. The traumatic you know feeling moved out, the nausea moved out. I feel resolve. And 5 minutes later, I was back down hanging out with you guys and walking around, went out to dinner, and had a great night. Um, but it's really interesting. Like, what would that have looked like 10 years ago, or maybe even 5 years ago? Maybe I would have tried to push it away. I would have tried to, or it would have taken me over, and I would have had either a really bad night, or I would have wanted to go home. Versus just like, oh, like there's something timely. Let me go run, take care of it. See you in 5 minutes. Right? I'm gonna go resolve this trauma, this fear around death that I have. From when I was 8, 9, 10, however old I was. But in a way, it's kind of almost humorous, right? But at the same time, it's like we don't stop when we put ourselves out there and we keep expanding. What's required of us doesn't stop. The old traumatic experiences, the old like our shit doesn't stop coming back in. It gets uncovered, but through our expansion, it doesn't, and then it becomes our job to resolve. And part of this is there's a certain point where our bandwidth gets big enough that we can actually be operating normally and resolving a traumatic experience at the same time without and being way bigger than it, and letting it be matter of fact, because there's nothing wrong. There's just an energy that got uncovered that I need to move through me and allow the story to correct so that it's not affecting me in a negative way. And see you in 5 minutes.
Yeah. And it sounds, let me know if you agree with this one or not. It's a skill like anything else. You get better at it the more you do it.
Yeah. And you trust it. You just go, there's nothing wrong here. I'm not under threat. This isn't scary. It's just trauma. It's not scary. Right. But before, trauma was like, I'm going to die, panic attack. And now it's just like, oh, look at some traumas coming up. Oh, that's an interesting one. Oh, death. Yeah. A lot of people have that one. Okay.
This is starting to be the equivalent of so fun.
So fun. But like, if you're going to put yourself out in the world, you're going to just get confronted with yourself. Right. And if you're going to put yourself out there inside yourself, if you're going to, there's a lot of people and go like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, really, how do you push yourself? What do you ask of yourself? Do and when we just want to lock in and do the same thing over and over again, that's why people do that. And it's not fulfillment. It's like kind of making it through life. But when we want a fulfilling life, when we want to go for it, we want to, really feel who we are and express that into the world and make the difference we're here to make, you're going to keep expanding and you're going to keep being confronted with yourself. And at some point, that skill set becomes, just very like, I got it. I can handle it. We don't need to go shut it down. We open it up and go, okay, oh, cool. An opportunity to clear out a little bit more. Great. Sometimes death does show up for me. It's kind of interesting. Let me clear out this level of it.
Yeah. Well, death comes in many forms. When you and I first met, it was that Harrison and stable career. That was my trait.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were the one who said, so like what options are available for you? And I didn't get the question. And then you walked me through it, right? And it's just like, oh, so I have one option: working for someone else forever. Oh, well, now I know that's not great, right? I just
if you
never
want a
thought
stable
about
career,
it.
that's what it looks like. Yeah. Or if you don't want to face yourself, if you don't want to, whatever your thing is, right?
Yeah. Well, then there was like 40
really
pages
small.
there was like 40 pages of myself.
I love that document. It's so good.
It's such a great tool. And so that was one of the turning points. I mean, what do we talk? What's the phrase? Defining moments, right? That was a defining moment, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I never thought about it until now, as that phrase. But that just that just you're all of a sudden on a road and you're just right hand turning off into the dirt road,
Mhm.
and you don't know where you're going
Mhm.
necessarily, right? But it's not that smooth
Mhm.
pavement anymore, and it was never smooth.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
sort of ignored all the bumps and the potholes.
Yeah. Yeah. Bouncing around. No, fine. I'm fine. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can do that, but it's awful. And I was sort of reminded of it when I went out on Friday to see a gentleman here in town, James Van Prague, who's a medium. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of folks are coming through, and there was someone who came through. I don't remember the context, but the messaging was something like he felt like he could have done so much more with his time on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, like that's so now he's over there. Now he's on the other side
Mm-hmm.
and feeling that
Yeah.
way, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that is not attractive. That I don't want to
No.
do
No.
that. Yeah.
No.
So
No.
there's other
No.
options.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting too. Again, if we look at people that, like when I first started doing this, didn't have a coach. I was like, oh, I have my access. I talked to my friends about it. And then at a certain point, when I actually, after I'd opened my own healing center, I got my first coach, and she was great. And I was like, oh my God, I have so many blind spots. Holy shit. I can't believe how many blind spots I have. And, I worked with her for a while, then I worked with other coaches. And what I found is that the people at the highest level, when I talk about these people that like, they have multiple coaches, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm one of their coaches, but they have other coaches too. And I always have at least a couple coaches going. And that's been part of my, what I've adopted in this too, is like, and being really intentional about who I hire, like high level, somebody that's an investment. And, right now I have, you know, two coaches that I see weekly. And then I have, other, I would call them coaches, but things I'm participating in, and, part of a group which is all about self-expression and expansion, and realizing like, it's kind of ironic, right? You know, the people that we look at in the world that are the most equipped, like when I look at my clients, and, I've come to feel that way about myself. Like, part of that knowing is going, yeah, this is about making sure I have people showing me myself all the time. Like, I want a coach to go, yeah, well, did you look at it this way, David? Did you see this? What about this part right now that you're not seeing in yourself? And going, oh, great. Oh, this is great. This is great. Not hiding from it, not defending ourselves, but just going, oh yeah, this is awesome. Like I want that reflection back all the time. And when we don't want the reflection, we know that, like, that's part of how we're holding ourselves back. And you can see it in what people are able to do in the world, is they actually want the feedback, they want the clarity, they want somebody to go to them going, you're missing something here, and not surround themselves by yes people, not surround themselves by, you know people that are just going to agree with them or have the same perspective, but people that are going
Yeah.
to, hold them to it, and push them. And that's, um, it's another level of, like, if I started out my, you know having that level of coaching, I don't think it would have been great, great for me. I wasn't ready for it yet. But, as I got different levels of coaching, that level of confrontation, self-confrontation,
Hmm.
it's not even self-confrontation. It's just awareness. It's just clarity. Like, oh yeah, oh, that's so much better. Thank you. That's great. That's great. I see it that way now. Thank you. Like, I add that onto my perspective, and now we put this perspective in. I just feel like I have a much better grasp of it now. I'm much more clear. I'm much more streamlined. I can let stuff go. It's great. Um, and imperative
Yeah.
to operate at that level, because you're going to keep expanding. You're going to keep revealing yourself to yourself, and, sitting in a closet with yourself trying to deal with it is not the way to do it.
Not the way to do it. And I'm going back to the text. You shared the copy with me just to
Mm-hmm.
get that line back up. Oh my goodness, there it is. There it is. Yeah. So what if the life you built is the very thing holding you back? So multiple buildings and multiple
Mm-hmm.
uh, stepping away from the building or remodeling that building, depending on
Mm-hmm.
how severe it was. That's what I keep hearing over and over and over.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to read the first few lines of this because it's so good, right? And so it's the headline was Nick just said, "What if the life you built is the very thing holding you back?" And then, this system helps high achievers remove what doesn't belong, so you can lead from alignment, not exhaustion. It's not you; it's life you built while betraying yourself. And that piece, like, and we talk about that all the time, like, Our job, once we get into alignment, is to not abandon ourselves, not to betray ourselves. And we don't know we're betraying ourselves. It's such hard, I mean, that's bold language, right? It's a life you built while betraying yourself. And what does that mean? It means we're putting other people's priorities. We're saying yes to stuff that's not right for us. We're not holding our boundaries. We're not holding our clarity. We're being who other people want us to be instead of who we truly are. And it's weird to look at it that way and go, God, we all betrayed ourselves most of our life, and our life reflects that. It really reflects that, because we have all this shit that's out of alignment, and a lot of stuff that we didn't betray ourselves is beautiful, but the place where we betrayed ourselves, we got to clean up.
Yeah. There's no reason to go into the worst restaurant you can possibly find and choose the best option off the shitty menu. Also, McDonald's, we are more than willing to take you as a sponsor. Right. So you're talking about not choosing the Big Mac, tasty, delicious, awful, because it's the best option. You go, I just don't want to be here. Yeah. This is not the restaurant for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to go eat someplace else. I'm going to make myself something. Yeah. I'm not putting this in my body. These are not the options I want for myself.
Yep. And reworking it. Yep. Beautiful. Great conversation. I feel like we could talk about this all day long. So hopefully people got a lot out of this, and if you're feeling like it's a self-confrontation, I guess good, right? Like it's a time for expansion, and really what happens is when we're expanding, self-confrontation is right. Like you go, that's weird, David, that you're dealing with, this trauma coming up for you on last Thursday. Like you've been doing this work for years. I'm like, doesn't matter. Like I'm going to keep expanding. I know I'm going to be facing myself my whole life, because I'm not going to stop expanding. I'm not going to lock it down and go, okay, this is a good level. I'm clear enough. This is working for me. But there's nothing interesting about that to me. And it doesn't mean that our life needs to be disrupted by it. It took me 5 minutes. I went up, tried, even came back down, right? My night wasn't ruined. My night would have been ruined if I tried to keep burying it and then just sit there stewing about it. But instead, we had a great time. And it was super free and super clear. Because
I was there. You ate tacos. Yeah, you ate tacos afterwards. So
they were so good. Oh my God, I love
they were
that
great.
Place. What's the name of that place?
Questo.
If you're ever in La Jolla, Questo. Oh my God, best tacos.
Questo. Oh my goodness.
So next time you're in La Jolla, go get tacos at Questo.
Questo with the P.
But clear your trauma first. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for listening, and have a great week, and we'll see you all next week. We hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast, and if you did, please subscribe so you can catch the next episode. If you want to learn more about the Aligned Living System and how it could support you in your life, check out davidwaldas.com.